Hi everyone. Today I'm doing a juice fast, or juice feast as I like to call it, to pull in loads and loads of nutrients into my body. And whenever I talk about juice feasting or juice fasting, I always get asked, how do you do the juicing, like the actual practical, what veggies do I use, how do I chop them, what juicer do you use, and so on. So I thought, given I'm about to do some juicing, I would record that for you so that you can know. So I've got all my bits and pieces ready. I'm going to do Kabbalah. So Kabbalah is carrot, apple, beet, apple, lemon and apple, ideally with 3 different types of apples. So your red, your green and your yellow. Now yellow aren't in season at the moment, so you can get lots of different types of red apples, for example, but I'm actually going to throw in some pears instead, just for a different nutrient source. And I have my lemons and my beets. Always use the tops, the leaves, especially if you have them. I have loads of carrots. Again, if you have the tops of the carrots, use those as well. Some ginger, I'm not going to use all of that. And I have some greens as well. Because I don't have the tops of the beets and the carrots, I'm going to use some organic baby spinach. And I've also got some lettuce. And I've actually got a bit of cabbage that was just happened to be left over in the fridge. So I'm going to chuck that in as well. So to start, it doesn't really matter what order you do things in. I personally, there probably is, but I personally just like to make sure that if I'm using carrots, I mix that in with the apples and the pears, because they can get a little bit stuck in your juicer. Carrots help to push all that through. So for a carrot, you can leave the top on. Obviously, make sure they're washed, particularly if they're not organic, but even if they're organic, wash them. And to be honest, I'm a big advocate of organic foods, but when it comes to juicing, I don't always, simply because of the cost. So, you know, any juice is better than no juice. So don't avoid juice just because you don't have organic veggies. So what you're looking for with your carrots is long sticks like this. So I've just chopped that in half and then into bits. I'm just going to chuck it into my bowl over there. And you would go through and do that for all your carrots. So you can just see I've chopped it into sticks like that. With your apples, if your juicer is big enough, you can chuck them in whole, but I find you get more juice if you actually chop them a little bit, and always take the stick out. So I tend to just quarter them, take the stick out and chuck that in the bin, into my bowl. If it's really big pieces, I'll probably cut them in half again, so that I end up with halves like that, or 8s, whatever that is. And same with the red apples. Take the core out. Sometimes the stick gets right in there, so you don't want that stick going through your juice. It's just not that good for it. And then with pears, a similar thing, chop it in half. I tend to just chop the top little bit off with the stick, just so the stick doesn't go in again. Seeds, the core, everything is fine to juice. With the pear, so I've just chopped that into little bits like that. Chop the pear. Okay, there it goes. Now with my ginger, I'm going to make a fairly big batch today, and I will at the end count up exactly how much of everything I've used so that you know. And I do have recipes too if you're interested, so reach out. I'm probably going to use about that much, I think, and I'm just going to slice it. It doesn't have to be particularly thin or anything like that. Just going to slice it, and just to help the juicer along, I might even halve it again like that. So I've ended up with little bits like that. So hopefully you can see that. And then with my beet, like I said, I'm going to use the tops, even though I don't have much of it. I'm just going to use chops like that, and even the tail bit. Might seem a bit gross, but there's so many nutrients in that that I'm going to chuck it in. And then with our beet, because it's hard, I'm just going to slice it like so. Hopefully you can see that okay. So I've got round circles, and if they're a bit big, I'll probably just chop them in half as well, just to help it through the juicer. And then with my lemon, so again, you want to make sure that you don't have the top on your lemon, so I'm just going to chop that off. And then so I've got a nice flat surface, I'm just going to leave it on my chopping board like that. And then I'm just going to cut rounds, fairly thin, but you know, it doesn't have to be wafer thin. And again, if I feel like they're a bit too big, I'll chop it in half again that way. So now I've got little quarters, almost little circly, roundy bits, maybe you want to call it. So that'll all go into my bowl as well. I'm just chucking everything into the one bowl so that it's all mixed together. And then I'm going to have some green organic baby spinach, as I said. So I'll just take a pretty decent handful of that, and I'll put that in a separate bowl. And once we get to the actual juicing, I'll explain why. And then, as I said, I have some leftover cabbage. So I'm just going to chuck in some of that, because why not, with greens. Just going to chuck off that end yucky bit. Then I'm going to chuck in that, just chop it up a little bit. Chuck that into my greens bowl. Now I could use all of this, but I've actually got another juice I want to do later, so I'm going to save that for that. And then, as I said, I've also got some lettuce. So again, I could probably quite easily use all of that, but I have another juice that I'm going to use that for later. Just chop that into some chunks. So I've ended up with a little white bowl full of greens there, and that's probably about the amount I want for this particular juice. So some of my other favourite juices, this one I've got right here because I am doing a juice feast at the moment. I'm drinking juice right now. This one is one of my favourites. It's simply sweet potato. Sounds weird, I know, but sweet potato makes juice really, really creamy, really yummy. Sweet potato, pineapple, coriander and ginger, and it is the bomb. Really, really, really good. So what I'm going to do now is pause the video while I chop all the other veggies, and then we'll come back and actually juice, and I'll show you how that works. See you soon. Okay, so now I have everything chopped up. I've got a whole thing full of carrots. I did actually end up leaving them separate. And I've got a whole thing, another one of these, full of apples and beets underneath there. And I'm now going to put it through the juicer. Now, the most important thing with the juicer is I'm not worried about the brand or anything like that, but make sure you have a cold pressed juicer. And the reason for that is, one, you'll get a hell of a lot more juice out of your produce, which means even though these are a bit more expensive, you will save money in the long run. And it also means that your juice will last a lot longer. Now, if you're anything like me and you're a busy woman and don't have time to, or a busy man, and don't have time to just juice all day, every day, I like to do what I'm doing now and make up a huge batch that will last me for 2 or 3 days. Now, so long as it's in a sealed jar in the fridge, it will last 2 or 3 days in the fridge. Sometimes I even freeze some. And that's the beauty of having a cold pressed juicer, whereas the centrifugal ones really, because of the heat process, they lose their nutrient value. It's almost straight away. So you have to basically make it and drink it. Now, again, if that's all you have, any juice is better than no juice. So by all means use it. But I would definitely recommend you go out and get a cold pressed juicer. The other thing I forgot to mention is that you would have noticed I left the skin on the lemon. Definitely do that for lemons. One, because I'm not using too much, so it won't, the taste won't go in there. And there's so many valuable properties in the skin of fruit. If you imagine the skin of the fruit is designed to protect the inside. So we're going to be having those qualities when we drink it. When it comes to other citrus fruit, like oranges and mandarins, where you might be using lots, I would peel it purely because it's quite bitter and it will make your juice taste pretty gross. And you'd also peel pineapple. So take off the skin of the pineapple, but juice the core. The core of the pineapple is where it has such a high concentrate of iodine, better than the rest of the pineapple. So you're going to be getting all that iodine, which is amazing for your thyroid. And if you have any throat, cold or anything, pineapple juice is really good for that too. Kabbalah is just an all-round general juice that's good for everything. And it's the one that I make sure I have at least, when I'm juice feasting, I make sure I have at least a litre of that every day because it's so good. And then I might have the other juices. The rest, I probably have about between 2 to 3 litres of juice a day, depending on how hungry I am. And then I will have, especially now, winter, I'll have some veggie broth for dinner. Sometimes I make veggie soup too. So veggie soup juice. So I'll put like tomatoes through here. The other night I did corn and asparagus, and it was amazing. And just really, really gently heat it so that I'm having something warm, but you don't want to boil it or anything because you'll lose all the nutrient value. So yeah, so I'm going to turn the juicer on. It's going to be a bit loud, so you won't hear me, but I'll just do a few little bits so that you can see how that goes. And my juicer comes with this little pusher thing. So if I need to, I can push things down, and it's also got a little flap, so I can put small things in this gap, and anything that's a bit bigger I can put in through the big hole at the top. And then I call this part the poo shooter. This is where the excess comes out, or the fibre, and you can use that. A lot of people freeze the fibre and use it to make muffins and cakes and savoury crackers, put it in your compost bin, whatever you like. You will have a lot of it, and then the actual juice comes out here. And while I'm juicing, I'll keep it closed. And then once I've got a decent amount, I'll open it up. So I'm just going to do one little lot, open it up and let it come out. And then I'll keep going and show you the next steps later. Okay, so you're probably not going to be able to hear me. Here we go. I'm just going to start with some care. You'll notice I'm doing it really slow.
And I'm going to mix the veggies and fruit. The carrot will push everything else through. Coming out here. Oops. Then with your greens, you can scrunch it up and put it in that way, and put some carrot through at the same time just to help push the greens through. I do tend to leave the greens till last because they can fold things up a bit. Things like celery you want to leave till last as well. And you can see that's filling up. Move that up. Pull that juice out. And I'll be back shortly. Right. Once you've got your juice, that next step is obviously to put it into your bottles. Now, some people like to put it into a big bowl and mix it all up once you've juiced everything and mix it all up, and that's completely fine. I personally am a woman who likes to do things the quick and efficient way and prefer to just pour it straight in the jars. Now, it does obviously mean that your balance of the veggies and fruit might be slightly out, but for me, I'm okay with that. So I have old passata jars I use. You can use anything. I've got these ones are juices I actually bought from a lady at the market, so I use those. Then I've got a couple of plastic ones. Now, I don't recommend reusing plastic over and over and over, and I realise that it's not ideal, but I do like to freeze some, especially when I make a big batch. So these are really perfect for my freezer because they're nice and square, so I like to use those. Now, I've got 6 bottles here. These are 1 litre each. These are 750 and these are 750 as well, I think. They might be slightly smaller, but I will work out exactly how much to make. Now, before I pour it in, just give it a good stir. Over there. And then I'm just going to try and make sure I get about the same amount in each bottle. And then I just keep going and going and going until they're all full. Now, sometimes I've underestimated and I need to get more bottles out, or I overestimate and have to fill them up. I'm going to lose one and fill the rest up. Some other great juices are greens. Greens is an awesome juice. So you can use broccoli, anything that's green, lettuce, kale, spinach. You can see I've missed one there, so I might not worry about doing that one. Lettuce, kale, spinach, broccoli, green apples, asparagus, zucchini, cucumber, all really, really, really good for green juices. And sometimes I'll just pull out whatever's left over in the fridge before it goes off and run it through the juicer because I'd rather juice it than throw it out, obviously. So I'm going to keep going and we'll be back soon. And I'm finished. So what I ended up with was just under 3 litres of juice. I used, in case you want to write it down, I used 10 green apples, 10 red apples, 20 carrots, 3 beetroots, 2 lemons. Actually, I only ended up having 2 pears, and that chunk of ginger that you saw and the pile of greens that you saw as well. I also, at the end, because I didn't quite fill up all my bottles, I used some coconut water. So if you need to top up your juice, because what you want to do for the ones that are going in the fridge, you want to make sure they're fully filled right to the top, like there's literally no air in there. So they're completely sealed so the oxygen can't oxidize any of the nutrients in there. So you can top it up with coconut water. I opened a coconut water because I'm doing a juice feast. I like to have a drink of coconut water as well. Or you can just use water, but just make sure the water you're using is filtered because you don't want to be putting fluoride or chlorine into your beautiful fresh juice. And if you're going to use that, or if you need to use water, flush it through your actual juicer so that any sort of, last remnants of nutrients can come out, and then you use that to top up your juice. Now, I've deliberately left the plastic ones slightly not full because they're going to go in the freezer. So obviously liquid is going to freeze and take up more space. So I just needed to leave a little bit of space in there. So that gave me, as I said, just under 3 litres. Just check the time. It's 1:20 and I started at 12. So I haven't cleaned up yet. So give me, 10 minutes to clean up. That is an hour and a half. And I've made just under 3 litres of juice, and I've got enough for probably just over 2 days. So if you take into consideration the amount of time that you spend in the kitchen cooking over 2.5 days, you would well and truly be in there for more than an hour and a half. So in my book, it's worth doing that in a big batch. I don't have to cook again for another 2.5 days or do any juicing for 2.5 days. With my juice fast, as I said, I also have coconut water. Sometimes I have lots of normal water. I have greens powder still. I have broth at night or a soup juice if I make one. And sometimes I'll have nut milks as well, which sometimes I make and sometimes I buy. Just be really careful of ingredients, nut milks. And then the final thing is the cleaner. So with the actual juicer, because I've just done so much, I will give it a really thorough clean now. Your juicer will come with a brush, so make sure you really scrub the strainer because that's really important. But to be honest, I juice celery every single day, every single morning. And if I know that I'm not going to use my juicer again for the day and I'm just going to be using it again for celery juice the next morning, what I'll do is I'll take this top part off and I'll wash that. Put it over in the sink. And the actual bowl part, I just lift this off. If that gets stuck on there sometimes, by the way, it can do, just give it a really light tap on there and it'll come off. I will put this in the bowl, fill it up with water, and then I'll just, give it a quick rinse in the morning before I use it again. I don't go through the whole process of scrubbing it really thoroughly if I know I'm going to use it for exactly the same thing the next day. I don't leave it for weeks or days even like that. That's just me. It's probably being a little bit lazy, but I like to say it's being efficient. So there you go. If you have any questions, reach out. As I mentioned, one of the most important things is making sure you put things through the juicer really slowly. If you put too much up, it will get clogged up. I sometimes use my spoon to very carefully push things through and pull it out of the poo shooter as well if it gets a little bit clogged. If you're doing loads, you might have to actually pull it apart halfway through, give it a bit of a rinse out if the strainer's got too blocked, and then start again. But I didn't have to do that this time, and I did, as I said, just under 3 litres. And I think that's everything. So please reach out if you've got any questions about juicing. Otherwise, looking forward to you having such beautiful skin, clear thinking. I cannot tell you how clear my brain is at the moment. No brain fog at all. Emotionally, I really feel a lot more stable when I juice fast. So yeah, looking forward to hearing your stories about how juice fasting works for you. Thanks for listening.